Hello everyone, and welcome to the AFF Angels Fall First Spacefighter tutorial, take 2. So I made a version of this tutorial, but it turned out to be quite difficult to hear the audio, more specifically to hear my voice. So I've turned down the audio now for the game and turned up the audio for me. Hopefully it will be easier to hear me clearly now. So, like before, I'm going to start with a quick overview of the controls. So, the main controls that I want for space fighters, they're not necessarily the same as the ones for infantry controls, which is why I don't think the infantry control scheme is the best one to use. The main things I want to do in the fighter, first of all, I want to go forward, be able to go forward and back. I've assigned these to U and J, and I've got those on my ring finger. Most of the flight control is done with the mouse. Another important one though is boosting, so I've got that on my pinky finger as H. Marking a target is very important, and so I've got that on right control on my thumb. Strafing up and down I've got on I and K, so that's with my middle finger, and L and semicolon with my index finger. Some other important controls. Reload weapon I've got on right alt, so I can easily get to that with my thumb. The switch flight mode, I'll explain what that is during the tutorial, but I've got it on O, and I've got countermeasures on P. Countermeasures I'm not going to use, but I mention it now because it's important in real life play, and online play against bots, etc. It's to activate your shield, basically, or your flares, or your drone. One more important key is G. That's interact. I've got it on G. It's usually F. But the reason I've got it on G is so I can easily get it to it with my pinky. Command menu and vehicle menu I've got on F1 and F2. This is because they're very close to the 1, 2, 3 and 4 keys. 1, 2, 3 and 4 are hard coded, unfortunately. I can't change those. As well as doing the weapons, they also control the menus for commanding your minions. I think that's about it. Oh no, there's a couple more. So B and N I have on the vehicle cameras. So that's to change from first person to third person view and back. Comma and period I have, so I can relatively, by the way, B and N I can get to with my pinky. Comma and period I can get to fairly easy with my index finger, and they control roll left and roll right. Basically I never use those. And finally slash, which I can get to with my thumb, is switch fire mode. So you might want to switch the fire mode on your weapons. To actually fire your gun, of course, it's left click. To zoom in and out, it's right click, and the middle mouse button controls the weapon selection. I really think that that is about it. So I'm gonna go and head into a game. So the important settings for setting up a game, when you just want to get the hang of space combat, you don't want to get blown up all the time. I recommend playing on Ixion. It's a wide open map, and if you play as League, it has enemy static defenses, which you can use for target practice and dodging practice, without any real possibility of getting destroyed. I want an offline game, so that it's offline. I only want me. I don't want to be playing against other players yet, because I'm just going to be showing you the controls. Similarly, I don't want any AI, so I set max AI to 0. And I want as much time as I like, so I'm going to set the mission timer to max. Let's get right into the game. So like I said, the most important controls here are forward, back, boost, and mark target. So I'll go through those first. When you first enter a game of Angels Fall First, one of the things that can confuse you is how to spawn, so I'll go through that very briefly once we get in. So here we go. In the loadout, in the briefing room, you should adjust your loadout. So I'm going to set this to ULA Crewman, which basically has a light suit with a lot of boosters for the speed. It's kind of important. I'll hit apply. For some reason my dude just dies. Oh well, that's fine. And press G, normally it's F, but I'll press G to start the game. I'll let Milnet do the commanding, not that it makes any difference whatsoever. Alright, so to spawn you first need to select a location. Now, there are two locations on this map, Ixion and the USNV Swift, which is our battleship. So this scenario normally is a battleship attacking a space station. The battleship starts out in warp, so it's not on the map anywhere here. But when you launch a fighter off the battleship, then it will come out of warp. The fighter will come out of warp. So a little bit about the loadout. I've chosen a Rapier Interceptor. It's the fastest ship and the most maneuverable. It's not much faster than the Sword, which is the next fastest, but it is something like 50% more maneuverable, and that's huge. I've put two drive specs on. These drive specs increase the speed of the ship, and I also find that very important. You can put on armor, you can put on anti-shock, you can put on ammo, etc. Insulation defends you against a very specific weapon, which it probably doesn't matter. Ammo doesn't really do anything. You have infinite ammo in your fighter for almost all the weapons anyway. The anti-shock and armor are nice for defending you against getting hit, but a much better defense is not to get hit, and for that purpose I prefer to use a double drive spec. The next most important thing is the swarm missiles. So these missiles, as of now, which is patch 4, are horrendously OP against all targets, basically. You can use them against anything up to a destroyer. Using them against a frigate is not going to do much. Down here there are customization slots for your weapons. You can choose optics, which lets you zoom in more, reload, which reloads faster, or targeting, which lets you target faster. Targeting is the most expensive. It's also by far the most powerful and important for missiles. The reason for this is that when you're lining up, when you're locking onto a target, you need to be pointing towards that target for a few seconds, and that typically means you're more or less flying in a straight line for those few seconds, and that's really bad. Flying in a straight line in this game is basically suicide, so you want to do that for as short a time as possible. I don't really have enough for an extra reload spec, or targeting spec, but if I if I was using my full allocation of points, then I'd put more targeting specs on that. I'm using the second cheapest weapon because the cheapest one is very bad, and I don't think, even if I picked the cheapest weapon, I don't think it's enough for another targeting spec, which is all that really matters. You can put mines on your ship if you like. If you like them and you have the spare points for them, why not? I don't find them very useful. I prefer to concentrate on the swarm missiles, but I think I may even put them on my fighters normally, since I have a lot of points. Finally, countermeasures. So I would much prefer to have countermeasures on my ship, but I can't afford them on my budget. I find the most useful one is the shield. Naturally, it's also the most expensive. The flares and orbiting lance drone pretty much just protect you from missiles, but the shield projector can protect you from all sorts of fire. When I say I can't afford things, what I mean is that normally at the start, when you've got a new character, you start out with a specific allocation of points in 3 different categories: combat, command, and support, and the amount you have is 150 combat, 80 command, 80 support. As you gain XP in the game, you get levels in each of these categories, and you get more points in each category. You get combat points by hitting things. You get command points by following orders and by giving orders. And you get support points by doing things like repairing ships, or putting down turrets which then shoot people, things like that. Or putting down med packs or ammo packs which other people use. So basically you do support actions, and whenever those support actions pay off and prove useful, you get the points. Let's head in. So when you warp in, you don't start off stationary. You start off going at full throttle, and you also start off with the grav mode, or what I'm going to call the flight assist mode, equipped. By which I mean it's on, it's activated. And I'll explain what those mean in a minute. So first of all, I'll go over the throttle control. So U is forward and J is back. If I press U here, it doesn't do anything because I'm already at full throttle. If I press J, then this reduces my throttle, and the flight assist mode will automatically slow me down when I reduce my throttle. I can continue to reduce my throttle by pressing J. You'll notice that my fighter does have to accelerate. It can't change its velocity instantaneously. It does have to accelerate to change its velocity. So when I press J, you can see that the throttle marker moves, and then my velocity moves, but it moves more slowly. You'll also notice that in most games of this kind, there is a maximum velocity. I can't actually accelerate my ship to not infinite. I can't actually keep accelerating my ship indefinitely like I could in real life. There is a maximum speed. So that's the forward and back control. Next I'll go over the mouse. Well, the mouse is very simple. You point in a given direction. Actually, let me slow down to nothing so I can show you what the mouse actually does. The mouse points your spaceship in a given direction. So you move it around, and I'm being shut at. And your spaceship will point in that direction. Now, when you have flight mode equipped, right now I'm stationary, right? Let's suppose that I'm not stationary, that I'm moving at some speed. When you have the flight assistance equipped, when you have it activated, what the flight assistance does is it tries to match your velocity vector, the direction you're going in, to your heading, right? So as I turn my ship's heading, the flight mode automatically tries to turn my ship's velocity to that as well. Let me go over what happens if I don't have flight mode activated. So I'm now going to deactivate flight mode by pressing O. Again, I'm going to accelerate my... I got hit because I was standing stationary. Only thing worse than traveling in a straight line is standing stationary. So I'm going to accelerate my ship, and you'll notice that my ship is no longer thrusting. It's just coasting along. So that's one of the effects of flight assist. It holds your forward or back thrust. And now look what happens if I move the mouse to turn. I'm moving sideways. You see, the flight assist is off, so my velocity vector has not changed at all. The ship is moving in a straight line. One use of flight mode on off is to stop your ship. So when you put the flight mode off, your ship forgets about what thrust it was using. If I put the flight mode on again, the flight assist on again, sorry, I went into leaving combat thing there, which is bad. Okay, fine. So I turn it off, it forgets that I was using thrust. And then it... let me try again. So, I'm going at full throttle, right? I turn flight mode off. Now, it forgets that I was using the thrust, but because the flight mode is off, my ship keeps coasting along. Now I turn it back on again. Now, my computer tries to align my velocity to my heading, but since my thrust is at 0, it actually just tries to stop me. So that was a long way of saying a very quick way to stop in this game is to press flight mode and then a second later press it again, and that will get you to stop. Okay, so the next most important thing is the boost. So normally I'm limited to a speed of 1866 in this interceptor with 2 drive specs, but with boost I can go faster. With boost I can go up to 2799, so I can go 50% faster. That's not the only benefit of boost, however. There is another very important benefit. Have a look at what happens if I try and turn, do a full 180 degree turn, okay, or even a full 360 degree turn. That would be more easy to measure. So I'll pick some far off target, like I don't know. I seem pretty close to all the targets. Okay, that one, right? So actually, let me target that. I'll target mine's E. Now I'm going to do a full 360 degree turn. Pretty much as fast as I can. You can see that took me like 5 or 6 seconds. With boost on, that was more like 4 seconds. And I crashed. Hooray! Incidentally, crashing is bad. You die if you crash, as you might expect. Alright, so next up are the strafing keys. So I have these set to I, K, L and semicolon. I and K for up and down, L and semicolon for left and right. Well, they work exactly as you expect. The flight computer doesn't remember the thrust in these directions. Okay, so only while you're holding down the button will it actually do it. Now, when you have the flight assistance on, it's not too necessary to strafe. There are cases where it's handy, but most of the time you're just moving the mouse, or I'm just moving the mouse. I haven't yet figured out a way to use these really well in flight mode, in flight assist mode. But when you have strafing on, when you have flight assistance off, then the strafing can be very effective. Let me target these mines and press strafing off, and now let me start, press flight mode off, and now let me start strafing. Strafing up and left and then down. I'll strafe up to avoid this thing. And you can see I can still dodge, right? Even though I would be traveling in a straight line without the strafing. With the strafing, my velocity is changing all the time, so I'm less likely to get hit. So this can be very useful. Okay, I've started firing now on this target, so I targeted it with right control, which is my thumb. And then I hold down left click in order to target Z missiles. They said they don't want to target. Oh, I think it's because I'm very close to the edge of the range. That's kind of unfortunate. Okay. So I'm going to put flight assist back on now. So with flight assist on, you can dodge enemy projectiles just by moving side to side or moving around in a sort of random fashion. Yeah. No. Oh, sorry. Seems like I didn't really put the flight assist back on. I'm not quite sure why. Right. So with flight assist on, rather than attacking like I was doing from the side, so like moving sideways and then pointing towards the target, usually you're going more in a sort of straight towards the target, but you want to try and minimize the time that you're going straight towards the target. So this is when strafing is helpful in flight mode. So forgot about the boost key. So normally with flight mode on, you're pointing towards your target, that means you're moving directly towards your target in a straight line, but you strafe a bit and you're not quite moving in a straight line, so it's slightly less dangerous. Okay, so really the safest way to attack is not what I did there. Let me try and get this right. So most of these attacks that I've been doing, I've just been trying to show the controls. They're not tactically sound attacks. If there were really other fightercraft around here, I'd be in smithereens by now. But I'll try and do one. So what you do is waver around, dodging, until you get in range. Then target and strafe at the same time, and then very quickly boost away. And that would land a hit on there, and I don't think I would have given anyone a very easy shot at that time. Again, wavering around till I'm in range, and then immediately boosting away. I forgot the strafing part that time. Okay, other controls, the camera controls. I can press N to switch to a faraway camera mode, and then again switch to first person, and then to switch to third person near camera mode. Period and comma control roll left and roll right. Again, I've never found a good use for this. P is controlling the countermeasures, but I don't have any countermeasures right now. Wingmen, I don't have any wingmen, so I can't really command anyone. Right control I said was targeting, it's very useful. Target all sorts of things. To reload, actually just clicking, so trying to fire when you're out of ammo, will automatically reload your weapon. The game is smart enough to realize that if you're trying to fire and there's no ammo, then probably you want to put some ammo in your weapon. But you can manually reload by pressing, in my case, right alt, and this can be very helpful. So let's say I fire off one salvo here, and then I run away. And now while I'm running away, I would like to reload, right? If I don't have anything to shoot at with my weapon, might as well reload it so I get 2 shots out of it rather than 1. And I think that covers all of the basic controls. So I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial video.